Inside Out 2 marks the 29th Pixar film, so in today's video I'm going to be ranking them all from the worst to the best. The tiers we have on screen are bad, meh, good, great, and best of the best. And before we get into it, over 90% of you guys who watch these videos aren't subscribed, so if you do end up enjoying this video, feel free to hit that button so you don't miss out on any more of my movie reviews or rankings. But without wasting any more time, let's get right into it. These are in no particular order, but starting it off, we have Toy Story. This is one of the greatest Pixar films of all time. This is going in the top of great. I do think there is one Toy Story movie better than this, so I don't want to harp on this for too long, but this is a classic. One of the first that the studio has made, and honestly, one of the best. And then we have Up. Now, I love this movie overall, but I will say, I think it goes in bottom of great. I feel like back in the day, I would have put it at best of best. The first 10 minutes is obviously absolutely amazing, but upon a rewatch, the third act does drag just a little bit, but overall, I do love this story. It's super heartfelt, and this is a classic Pixar film. And then we have Toy Story 3, and this is the one I was saying that was better than Toy Story. As of now, I'm gonna go above Toy Story 1. Now, if you guys didn't know, I do rank the movies within their own tiers, so you guys can get a grasp of where they actually rank against one another specifically. I will say, I think the other Toy Story movie that we'll talk about in a second here actually has a little bit more of a detailed story, but Toy Story 3 is truly villainous. Lotso is one of the greatest Pixar villains, and this story is genuinely so sad, and as I've gotten older, I've just appreciated this movie more and more. And then we have Cars 2. Now, I've been doing Pixar rankings every year for the last 2 years, and I've had Cars 2 pretty high up. Recently rewatched it. This one's going at the top of meh. No diss to this movie. I just think overall, it's not that great. I feel like I always put it in good, just a solid film, but I don't know. The more I've sat with it, it is just like a spy thriller that doesn't really need to be a spy thriller. I don't know how we got from Cars 1 to this. And Cars is an absolute classic in my book, so revisiting this one wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be. And then we have Brave. This one is going in bad. This is arguably the pick for the worst Pixar movie ever made. I like the general idea of the time periods and the general idea of this, the whole, I guess all of the themes in this film, but it's just kind of boring. It has a third act problem that a lot of Pixar films seem to have, and the protagonist also just isn't very likable. And I might go hot take for hot take back to back, but next up is Monsters University, and this one is going at the top of great, and this will probably make its way up to best of best. I think Monsters University is arguably one of the most underrated films of all time. I think this is one of the instances where Pixar made a sequel, technically prequel, and I truly wanted it, and I truly thought it justifies its existence completely. I obviously have a Monsters Inc. shirt on right now, and I think that movie is completely good. We'll talk about that in a sec here. But Monsters University is, number one, the definition of an awesome prequel. The scare games are the coolest thing ever. Uzma Kappa is so sick as well. And I also love that the third act of this movie completely transforms itself into really a completely different type of movie with the whole cabin in the woods sequence. And it doesn't fall off at all. I feel like a lot of Pixar movies have a third act problem, and this one doesn't. I think it really flourishes in the final moments of the film. And then we have The Good Dinosaur, another one of Pixar's worst. I solidly, between the last 2 years, cannot remember where I put The Good Dinosaur and Brave in regards to one being better than the other, but let's just say they're both pretty damn bad. Probably the most bland thing Pixar has ever made. Next up, we have Finding Dory. This one is going to go at top of good with potential to get into the great category. This is another great film that falls in the prequel / sequel category. I guess just secondary films made off a great original film. And I think Finding Dory is just, it's such a feel-good movie while also being very, very sad, obviously. The otters are so cute as well. And honestly, I just think Dory is such an entertaining protagonist that any film or TV show, whatever spinoff they wanted to do with Dory, I feel like I would have enjoyed it no matter what, because she's just so charismatic as a character. And then we have Cars 3. This one is going to go at good, but you'll definitely see a lot of movies go above this in the good category, because this is definitely writing good and meh. Obviously, this is like the old head story of the old guy fading out. The McQueen is fading out. Those TikTok edits go crazy.
Listen, don't you worry, pal. You had a good run. Enjoy your retirement. Storm takes back the lead.
Unbelievable! McQueen is fading! McQueen is fading! Fading fast!
No.
Lightning McQueen's racing days are over.
It is a very motivational film, I can give it that, but for me, it just doesn't hit like the first film, but obviously it is better than Cars 2. And then we have Coco. This one is going best of the best. Feel like I tell this story every year for the last 2 years while I make these videos, but I watched this movie on repeat in my 7th grade Spanish class. This was the staple of that class, and this movie absolutely slaps. One of the most creative Pixar films, one of the saddest Pixar films as well, and one of the most entertaining and interesting protagonists in a Pixar film as well. Coco checks off the boxes all across the board. Also, some of the best music in the Pixar movie. I feel like I could talk about Coco for days on end. This one was one of those monumental movies in my life where, like a lot of people, rewatched Finding Nemo a lot when they were little. I did as well, obviously. And then we have A Bug's Life. I'm gonna put this like in the middle of good. I talk about this all the time and I can really only just say that it's a good film. And I think the villain is interesting, but like the protagonist also isn't someone that I'm super connected to, and so, or at least like thematically connected to. So it just kind of falls in the middle. Not bad, not great, just good. And then we have The Incredibles 2. This movie, oh my god, I love this film. As a sequel, somehow it just delivers what Incredibles did as well. I'm gonna go above Toy Story. That might be a crazy hot take, but this one is going in great. It knows how to take a different approach to a sequel rather than just rehash the same thing over and over and over. And then we have Toy Story 4. I do think that this is the worst of the Toy Story films, but I still don't think it's bad. I'm going to go good, like very end of good below Cars 3. I feel like Cars 3 for me is just a more personable story, and so Toy Story 4 falls flat compared to Cars 3 in that sense, but if it wasn't for that specifically, obviously the animation in Toy Story 4 is nuts. It is beautiful and gorgeous, and I think the story is great as well. It just doesn't hit for me as much as Cars 3. And then we have Onward. This is one of Pixar's most underrated films. I think I'm going to go above Incredibles 2. This is going in the great category, right in the middle at this point, but Onward is a beautiful brother tale. As an older brother, I absolutely love this film. This is also such a notable film for me because it's the last film I watched in theaters before the pandemic happened, and everything was just so, like, it just hit so much about this movie, and I genuinely enjoy this one. I genuinely think that this is one of those movies where if you saw it originally and you didn't like it, I feel like if you rewatch it and give it another shot, you might like it a little bit more. I love Onward. I could talk about it for days. I also think the voice cast is pretty damn awesome as well. Obviously, it's just like big names. Yeah, but I think it works. And then we have Soul. This was, I believe, the first straight to Disney Plus Pixar movie. I'm gonna go top of good for Soul. I'm debating what to put on top of each other, Finding Dory or Soul, and I'll finalize that before the end of the video, but I think Soul works really, really well. I just think that the middle act drags a tad bit because of the whole body switch thing. I feel like I know a lot of people think that's just like a stupid little joke, but I thought that was a really cool way to make this very existential thing, something that was super digestible for children, because that is what Pixar movies are made for, by the way. Like, I know they have this track record of making everything able to be digested and thought of in a bunch of different ways, from adults to middle-aged people, old people, and then young people. It's like, obviously they've been able to cater to a lot of people, but this is such an existential thing that I feel like the body switch thing was a solid way to do it. But I also feel like, obviously, the older you are, the more goofy it actually feels. And then we have Luca. I'm gonna go I'll go middle of good, right below A Bug's Life. It's a very good movie. My biggest problem is they make such a big deal out of being on land, and then they're on land like it's nothing, and all of the stuff about getting caught, none of it feels super urgent to me. So that's one story point that, I mean, I think it's a good movie overall again, but I just think that those small plot point things bother me a lot. But other than that, I will say I do think a lot of the voice acting is pretty great. I think the animation is gorgeous. I mean, that's the case for all the Pixar films. And then we have Turning Red. I'm going to put Turning Red at probably top of meh. I think it looks cool. My only thing, I just can't relate to it as much. Like, this is definitely a film for the girlies, and it's literally, the whole plot is just being a girl growing up. I'm not gonna get that. But then we have Lightyear. This was the Pixar movie that came out last year, and I feel like I probably rated it very, very high because right out of Lightyear, I was so high on this movie. It has definitely gone down a lot. This one's gonna go at top of meh. And guys, I think I rated like a 9 out of 10 on Letterboxd right after I saw it. Okay, I cannot believe myself. I was so hype on this movie right after watching it, and I think it's because I really just thought the twist was really cool and ballsy, whatever. There's also, like, now that I think about it, no, like, sort of Pixar-esque themes in this film either. There's nothing to really grasp on thematically. And then we have Elemental. Also, I am going to correct myself. Lightyear did come out 2 years ago, not a year ago, because Elemental came out last year, obviously. Elemental, I think I'm going to go somewhere in good. Honestly, though, I'm going to go above A Bug's Life. I think Elemental is really, really good. I do think the final act, like, not the final act itself, but the resolution is a little bit cheap in my opinion, but the overall story is brilliant. It's such a real tale. I think that this was a very, very good way to put it together. I also did cry to this movie, which I wasn't expecting. And then we have Elio. What is this? When did this movie come out? I made a separate tier for this because what is Elio? I don't even know what it's about. I vaguely remember seeing a poster in like the back side of my theater. And then we have Toy Story 2. This one is going to go in good. I'm going to put it above A Bug's Life though. I think normally in my other rankings, I've had it probably below Cars 3, if anything. I actually don't remember. I change my tier list for these movies all the time. It just depends on how I'm feeling. Cause I saw a bunch of these when I was a kid and I rewatched them as I'm older. Anyways, Toy Story 2, like I said earlier, I feel like this is the biggest and most important Toy Story film just in regards to the world building itself. And while it also world builds so much, it's also able to be such a great tale about belonging. And I think Woody, Jesse, and then I'm forgetting the old guy, big beer belly guy's name, but that guy, and dude, the Woody cleaning sequence is superb. The airport sequence is awesome. There was just so much going on in this movie that I forgot about until I recently rewatched it, and I absolutely love this movie. It's a good time. And then we have Monsters, Inc. I know I'm wearing a Monsters, Inc. shirt. I'm not insanely high about Monsters, Inc. I'm gonna go top of good for Monsters, Inc. Actually, let me rework this a little. I'll go up is at the bottom of good, and Monsters, Inc. is at the top of great, or bottom of great. Monsters, Inc. was something that I watched when I was little, but I never got to witness it in theaters and stuff like that. So Monsters University was my first theater exposure to these characters. And so obviously I went back and liked Monsters, Inc. more, but I hot take think Monsters University is miles ahead of Monsters, Inc. just because of how much actual character work there is in it. Next up, we have Finding Nemo. This one is going in the best of the best. This will probably end up near the end of best of the best though. This is one of the staples of my childhood. Watched this movie so much growing up. This was the classic dentist office movie as well. No pun intended. Literally, I watched this in the dentist office 100 times. But like, I genuinely love this movie. I think every single sequence works perfectly. The shark is absolutely terrifying. And overall, it's just such a heartfelt story. I think this was also probably the first movie I ever cried to as well, I think. I just remember tearing up as a little kid watching this film. And so, yeah, Finding Nemo, it holds a really special place in my heart. It was the first version of Coco, I guess, where it was the first movie that I just had on loop all the time when I was a kid, other than like the live action Spider-Man Raimi movies. But then we have The Incredibles. I'm going to go best of best for The Incredibles, underneath Coco, but above Finding Nemo. This is one of the greatest superhero films of all time, and it came out before the big Marvels and DCs were taking over the box office and stuff like that. It truly builds out an amazing world that does feel like a comic book put on screen. Velma, Frozone, the Silver Girl, Syndrome is one of the coolest superhero villains of all time. Like, this movie rips on every single level, and it predates all of the amazing comic book films that we got after. And then we have Cars. This one is going to go in great, probably. I don't want to let nostalgia. I'm gonna let nostalgia blindside me. Cars is the best in the great tier, nearing best of the best. This was another movie I always was watching in the dentist office. I always had it on loop when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure I have the DVD right across from me in my closet. I love this film. It slaps. It's such a classic feel-good movie. The opening sequence, it rips. They don't miss. And then we have Ratatouille. This is the best Pixar film in my opinion. Rewatched this one before Elemental last year. Been rewatching bits of it all year, and Ratatouille is the ultimate motivational film. This is how you make a movie that appeals to all ages, because yes, the themes, obviously like little kids are going to understand it, but I feel like adults will be the ones to truly be inspired by this movie, while it also being super entertaining for kids because it's a rat cooking in a dude's hat. It's super funny and it's super exciting just as a film on a base level, but all of the thematic elements just raise this movie to a different bar. And then we have WALL-E. I used to be really high on this film, but as I've gotten older, I've liked it a lot less. I'm going to put this at the top of meh. I feel like normally I would be in good spirits and putting it at the bottom of good, but today I'm feeling meh. I think the second act drags a very, very long time, and my fondest memory of WALL-E isn't even the movie, it's the 3DS game, and so that says something. But I think WALL-E is a really interesting concept. It's very on the nose, just like Elemental, but I think Elemental at least works because it creates a real emotional connection, because it's something that happens between real humans, whereas WALL-E is literally about two machines falling in love with each other, and so doesn't necessarily have that one-for-one connection. And then we have Inside Out. This one is going to go in the great tier. I don't know where. I'll probably go below Onward, to be honest. I think Inside Out is an amazing movie. My biggest problem with it, though, is as I've gotten older, has not really stood the test of time. Never been like, I want to go rewatch this movie. I think the story's really interesting. Like, R.I.P. Bing Bong. I miss him every day. But other than like very small emotional moments, I think joy and sadness being together for most of the film obviously works in the story's favor, but for me, it's kind of boring. Inside Out 2, newest Pixar movie, of course. I think this one is going to go at the top of good, maybe great. Like maybe, like over time, it could go up to great. Oh shit. Actually, I'm going to have to put Up above Inside Out 2. I just realized. Yeah, Up is above Inside Out 2, but I think Inside Out 2 is some of Pixar's best work in recent years. Honestly, arguably since Onward. My biggest thing with Inside Out 2 is I feel like it feels way too short. Honestly, I walked in that theater, felt like I walked out 30 to 45 minutes later. Maybe that's a good thing because obviously kids don't have that long of an attention span, and Disney has literally been dumping Pixar movies onto Disney Plus, so maybe that's something they want, is to make it feel like it was 2 minutes long. But on the other hand, I think this is another great way to do a sequel. It's a good evolution. This is one of those Pixar movies that after watching the first one, you're like, wow, what happens to these people inside of her head as she hits puberty and as she becomes an adult and all these different things. And with that, they very much change the storytelling in that they make the real life story, like the thing that's not in her head, such a prominent part of the story. It's two things that are running parallel, and all of these new emotions that are coming into her head are battling the old ones while she's having this super pivotal moment in her life and going into high school with this hockey tournament thing. And so all of it is just super exciting to see all of these storylines and these really crazy things that we've all been through happen in real time, coincide with one another. But guys, that wraps up my tier list for all 29 Pixar films. Again, let me know your ranking for your favorite Pixar films in the comments down below. And if you want to check out more of my thoughts on Pixar, I did a full Pixar draft on my podcast, so you can check that out. Link will be in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.